Hey, it's Mike from Go Cell Phone Repair, and this is the Thursday night, 6 p.m. Tech Talk weekly live stream where we get together and talk about things that are going on in the world of wireless technology. We answer a few questions here and there and just kind of have a general discussion about things that whatever happens to be going on and you are interested in. So I have a channel here that offers tutorials for repairs and software solutions and different things along those lines. And of course, what we always want to do is keep an eye on what's going on, not only in technology, but in other things that will affect the way that we live our lives through all these crazy devices that we have available to us nowadays. And that is changing rapidly. Next week is CES 2018. If you haven't already checked it out, there is a huge electronics show in Las Vegas every year. I started going to this back, and I don't even want to say how long ago, but it was quite a while ago. And we used to go to this every year so that we could see the brand new cutting edge technology that was coming out. And last few years I haven't gone because really as soon as it's available, we kind of get to see it because someone else live streams it or takes a photo or whatever. So anyways, we'll be talking about what we expect to see next week at the CES week-long convention that's going on in Vegas. We will also be talking about a phone call that I got from a Motorola representative today, which I'm really excited to kind of share with you and let you know kind of the direction that that company seems to be taking and how it will affect those of us who are in the repair industry. Also, LG making some moves now, a company that we don't really hear much about too often when it comes to handsets at least, but it looks like their future is going to get much better, it seems like. We'll see, and that could change a lot of things when it comes to OLED availability. And last but not least, Samsung has applied for this really trippy patent that I want to talk about. We'll get to all that and more in just a second. And guess what you won't see in CES 2018 Las Vegas? I'll tell you right after this. So this guy, if you haven't already heard, will not be attending CES, although he was booked as being one of the presenters, I guess you could say. Yeah, that's right. Our buddy from the FCC, Ajit Pai, who has made many more enemies, I think, lately than friends, has decided to cancel his appearance. And it seems that he may have some concerns about safety. And that is unfortunate as much as it is not really unexpected. So, it turns out that, a lot of us were really upset that this guy not only just basically ignored what the public thought about net neutrality and was probably maybe the deciding vote at the FCC in favor of doing away with net neutrality. Obviously, they have to receive a lot of money from big corporations who are lobbying to kind of pretty much make this where there's an internet fast lane where you have to pay more for services you want, and they can kind of control how that's distributed. Now, that's a bad thing, but it's also pretty sad that people went as far as threatening him and his family, and this created a concern for him for safety, and he didn't want to show up. So, there are ways to approach these things legitimately. Going after someone and making threats of physical harm against them or their family, that's pretty low. What he did was pretty low, but obviously on a different level of a different type. So anyways, he won't be showing up there. We have Nate in the house. What's going on, Nate? John Cassidy, Beha, what's up, guys? Hey, I'm glad you all could come by tonight. And I actually had a question for you, Nate, and I put that on your page because I kind of wanted to share it here just so that we can all kind of learn from that. So I'm curious to see what you guys think about this. Not a big surprise that he's not going to be showing up, Mr. Pi. But what will we see at CES? I've got some ideas. We never really know until it's there or until somebody shows it to us, but there are a lot of rumors floating around. So much of what I talk about this evening will be based on what we've been told to expect. We never really know for sure, but what traditionally happens is that all of the companies that manufacture the devices that we make will kind of use this as a promotional tool to show off their new technology and to promote their products and to, kind of network and give presentations and encourage people to take a look at what they have to offer. So you always see all the big manufacturers there. We will definitely be seeing Samsung, LG, Motorola, Huawei, probably Xiaomi. I think Honor said they're not going to show up. But here's the interesting thing. As usual, Apple, of course, will not be going to CES because that is not their thing. They don't show up at these type of public gatherings and talk about what their upcoming technology is. That is all part of their marketing strategy. They like to keep that as a surprise, if you want to call it that, so that people can kind of guess and they can generate a lot of rumors and, people, get the buzz kind of going about what Apple's going to do next, which often leaves us just kind of, guessing to see what happens. So not really a big surprise, but we probably won't see or hear anything about Apple's next product for a while. I would suspect not until after Samsung launches their next line, which is something else I was kind of curious about. Really the strategy that Samsung has, which is kind of the opposite of the path that Apple and lots of other manufacturers go towards, and that is to get things out before the Christmas, before the holiday season, before the shopping season. I shouldn't say Christmas, but before the end of the year, when people are often shopping and buying. Samsung, on the other hand, tends to wait until the spring to launch a lot of their devices, especially their flagships. So it's kind of interesting that they do that, and I'm not sure what the reason for that is. It seems like we see something come out from Apple, and then Samsung has something that's a little faster, it performs a little better, but of course it comes out in the spring, so whether or not they're kind of taking the lead from Apple and deciding what to do next, I don't know how that goes exactly. But while I'm on that topic, I did want to mention that a couple weeks ago I attempted to make a call here on the live stream to return another Galaxy Note 7 for part of the recall and get a refund, and unfortunately the stream kind of went bad. Hopefully it doesn't tonight. Let me know if I'm lagging or looks like my audio is out of sync. But I was able to contact Samsung. It was a very brief phone call. The only thing was that I did have to provide them with the IMEI for the device, obviously, but they also wanted to know who the carrier was. And at the time I didn't know, so I kind of said, excuse me, I'm going to have to call you back later. So I got the carrier information, and the reason that was kind of difficult is because the screen on the phone was destroyed. Like, you could not operate the digitizer, you couldn't see anything as far as the AMOLED, so I was kind of going, how do I figure this out? Well, obviously, the IMEI is printed on the back panel of the phone, but it is super, super tiny, and on the gray, or whatever, it's called something else other than gray, but it's a slate or whatever that color of that particular phone was. It's very difficult to distinguish the numbers that are printed from the paint itself. So I had to put it under the microscope. Actually, I didn't put it under the microscope. I took a picture with my phone, blew it up, figured out what it was, called them. It was very brief. And they sent out a hazmat box, which I am going to get some photos of and probably show it on the next live stream. I thought that was interesting. Literally a hazmat labeled box that you send the phone back in. So we'll be getting a refund on that one as well. No problems, not too many questions asked, just IMEI and carrier, and you're good to go. So that was that. Now, why don't I have my chat here? My chat vanished. Give me one moment. I don't know why that's not showing up. That's kind of weird. Let's try removing the chat and bringing it back. You guys are supposed to be on the screen right now. So let's see if we can do... Oh boy, where did my chat go? That is a strange one. I think what we want is browser and existing chat, and boom, where's my chat? Oh, here it is. It's way over here, and I do not see anyone in here. So give me a second. Once again, thought I had this all worked out, and it's acting goofy. So let's see what the problem is. I kid you not, guys, I do this every week, and I think I've got it nailed. And then something else happens. So let's go up here. And see if we can get this thing working. All right, invalid parameters. What is that supposed to mean? Okay. Copy that. And paste that. And... there we go. Okay, that was weird. I'm not sure what happened there. Actually, I've got a second screen set up here, finally, so that I can read, because I was having a real tough time. My monitor down here is really small, so now I can actually see what you're all saying. Let's see. For aftermarket screens, can water get into the ear speaker, or is the lining thin enough to not let stuff in? Well, let's see. Aftermarket screens, can water get in the ear speaker? That is a good question. John, I would assume that you're probably talking about iPhones there, since we always have to switch, well, pretty much with a lot of phones, we've got to switch out the ear speaker. So is the lining thin enough to not let stuff in? That's a good question. I would suspect that you would compromise the water resistance factor whenever you move that speaker out. And obviously, the thing about the adhesive is that typically we will reuse that adhesive when we transfer over, you know, like the front-facing camera and the earpiece speaker assemble and all that stuff. So I'd say that it's probably not going to be as water resistant as it was to start with, but I'm not really sure what would be the solution for that. You know, maybe you could probably buy small pieces of adhesive, but man, I gotta say it would be kind of a headache to install those. So that's a good question, and the answer I think is that it's probably going to be one of those situations where if you put the phone underwater, you know, somebody drops it in the pool and they don't realize it and it sits there for a while, especially if you're beyond 3 feet, you're probably going to get some water inside there once you switch that thing out, I would imagine. Wish I had a more definite answer for you on that one. Harvey, what's going on? You could have used an OTG adapter with that broken Note 7. Yes, I could have. You're absolutely right. But instead what I did is I actually just took a picture. I wasn't thinking on my feet at the time. You know, I was on the phone. I was doing the live stream. And if it seems like I stall here a bit here, it's kind of, I've got a few different things going and I'm trying to monitor all this stuff, make sure it's working, move my slides around. And I'm not that, for multitasking, I don't have the ability that some people do. So yeah, I probably could have done that a lot easier. But anyways, it got taken care of. Good suggestion there. And that is a good idea. And actually, Harvey, I meant to get back to you. I still need to take the temperature on that rapid charger, and I haven't done that. And maybe when maybe I'll take a break shortly and go grab that, because I know I have that little temperature reading thing around here somewhere. I'll try to find it. In any case, let's see. Can we just move this up here? Oh, that's even better. Now I have a much easier time seeing what's going on. No, actually, this is better down here. Okay, so Mr. Pi won't be at CES, but what will? That is the question. So my understanding, and I've been just kind of, you know, jumping around all over the place to see what's going on. And if you didn't already know, CES technically starts next Sunday, and that is for exhibitors only. And then Monday it's open to the public, and it runs through Saturday, if I remember correctly. Oh, your rapid charger tied. That sucks. But I will still figure out what the temperature on that thing is. And I wonder if it actually was overheating then, if it died. Entirely possible. So CES is a blast. It's been an opportunity to not only check out new technology, ironically, not ironically, but ironically at the same time, if you're familiar with Las Vegas, they also coincide what they call the Adult Film Industry Expo at the same time that they're having CES. So you have what it used to be. This is the weirdest thing, okay? You had CES in this building, and probably 10, 12 years ago, in the same building they had, it was a secondary building, but what would happen is you would get a past CES, and then over in the Sands Expo, they had an adult industry thing where your pass for CES let you walk into this other place, which is filled with what you can probably imagine it was. Well, since then, the people who run that industry have figured out that they were losing out on a lot of money, and they actually started charging a separate entrance fee for people to go over there. So you've got two completely different things going on, and obviously people are probably wandering back and forth between the two. Not so much anymore. It was a really weird scene. But the cool thing about CES is you really had to take a few days to walk around and see anything. I mean, it's just incredibly huge. There's a ridiculous amount of exhibits. They had like a decade ago they had like robot things walking around. It was really crazy. And again, now we'll see all this stuff very soon. But what I'm really wondering is like what exactly we're going to see there. Excuse me. I saw you commented but didn't ask a question. No, Nate, and forgive me anyone who's come here for the first time. I do jump around a bit because I like to kind of stay up with the comments, and at least for the time being, until it gets too overwhelming. So, Nate, I watched your video, and it takes it easier to get the battery out. I watched your video on the iPhone 6. So if you guys haven't seen it, Nate actually has his own channel. I didn't know you could do this. You can actually right-click. If you're on a Mac, you might have to do it a different way. But if you go to any participant in this chat, if you highlight their name and go over to the right-hand side, you can kind of click on those three little dots, and it will take you to their channel. So if you want to check out Nate's channel, click on there, and it will show you a link so that you can get to his information. I didn't know that until a couple weeks ago. So Nate, I was on your channel, and you did a repair on an iPhone 6 that I think, I don't remember the exact symptoms. It was either rebooting or the Wi-Fi was grayed out or something goofy was going on with it. It wasn't Wi-Fi though. There was something else going on, and it was a water damaged iPhone. and you did a great job. Anyone, if you want to see removal and replacement of an IC, it's a very good video. And as I mentioned, I appreciate so much the fact that you did some editing, because a lot of the how-to, tutorials and stuff that I watch, there's not really any editing, so you kind of have to trudge through and skip around and try to figure out what's going on. So congratulations on that. I know it takes time too. I really understand the time that goes into that. But my question was, you had an iPhone 6. It looked like it had some problems, and there wasn't really. I took it more as a demonstration video of it as to how you remove this and how you replace it. But my question was, what led you to the conclusion that it would be a good idea to change out the U2IC, first of all? And when you did that and you were still experiencing those same symptoms, how did you end up going to the Wi-Fi chip? That was my real question, is what brought you to the conclusion that it would be a good idea to swap those out? I'm really curious to hear, what the steps were, from A to Z, is what led you there. Because obviously you guessed right, or you knew what you were doing and you figured it out. But I'm curious to hear how you got to that point. It was gray Wi. Oh, it was gray Wi-Fi. Okay. So that explains it. I would assume that the auto booting thing, that would have thrown me a little bit. I wouldn't have probably thought to change out the U2IC if it was boot looping, but entirely possible. But obviously if the Wi-Fi was gray out, that makes a lot of sense that there would be some corrosion underneath there. So that really answers my question. That's what I was after. John said, you pour it in the iPad and then give it a minute. I'm assuming that is... Oh, okay. I saw your iPad battery replacement with the iPlastic, and you said that you use alcohol to help get the battery loose. But you have used the iFixit industrial adhesive remover liquid that they advertise. I haven't. I'll have to check that out. Now, can you use that on a battery and then use the battery afterwards? Would be my question, because that sometimes, I guess very rarely, but when I'm doing something like a glowing logo, I need to be able to remove the battery and put it back in. And when those tabs break off, and you're going underneath there, can I use that same chemical and not worry about any damage to the battery? And if so, that's cool. And what kind of consistency is it? I wonder if is it like a slick, oily type of substance, and how does it clean up? Is it more like alcohol? I'm really curious to know, but I have not tried it yet. I would like to find out what that's like. I should call iFixit. They've been really cool. They sent me some tools and other demo stuff just because I talked to them and told them I was involved in repairs and tutorials and stuff like that. So maybe I'll hit them up or buy some, whatever. Kind of got lucky. Changed TriStar because of the auto boot. That was just to rule out power issue. Okay, yeah, I was just curious because I really admired the way you did the video, but I wasn't sure like what led you to the conclusion. I don't know how I missed the part about the Wi-Fi. I must have had it on on double speed, which is how I watch pretty much everything on YouTube now, because I just feel like I get so much more in that I'm kind of adapted to that pace. And then when I put things on like normal, I feel like if I watch my own video or anyone else's, I feel like we're just talking really slow the whole time. But I guess it's just really just a pacing thing. So awesome. Congrats on that one. Okay, so CES 2018. Here's what we might expect to see. And this one, I just want to say, I kind of had a feeling. Virtual reality, augmented reality. Obviously, we won't be seeing anything, as far as what Apple's doing, but I suspect, and this is what they said, this is part of the rumor, is that, of course, much of CES will be kind of dedicated to augmented and virtual reality. And in fact, while I was reading about this, they did say that augmented reality will be the focus of multiple panels and will be getting their own marketplace within CES. So probably not only for this convention, but going into the future, we will be seeing all sorts of augmented virtual reality, people in goggles and stuff like this. And this is the world that I really imagine, I have to say, in the next couple of years. Not these funky looking goggles like this. Nobody really wants to drive around with a big old headset like that. But once they get this down to a size where it looks not so freakish and is a little more practical as far as when you can take it off and put it back on and that kind of thing, I could see like people just walking around with those glasses. If you saw the movie They Live a long time ago, it's kind of like what I envision augmented reality to be in the future. You have something like a pair of sunglasses, you put them on, and suddenly you have access to all this information that is kind of very similar to what Google Glass was, but not in such kind of a geeky looking way that it was, because it was ahead of its time and it wasn't really too focused on practicality, I think, at the time. Now, obviously, there are other things that go along with that, wearable devices, that kind of stuff, but really when you think about our interface with the world, so much of it is based on visual representations that it really makes a lot of sense that going forward, one of these two things, virtual reality or augmented reality, is probably what a lot of these manufacturers will be focusing on. So that'll be interesting to see what they roll out there. Let's see, Nate, I do 2xp2. Yeah, man, and if you, assuming you can keep up with it, I feel like you can get so much more content so much faster. And you can, what if you could go to school or training or, wherever it is and just play things at your own pace? Because, everything's designed to kind of be at a rate that everyone is comfortable with. And in some cases, there's bits of filler here and there, or, interruptions or pauses. And if you could just hit 2x and go through and then go to normal speed or back up anytime you want to. I love having it's like on-demand information. That's awesome. It's a good point, but I sure think it's strong enough, so it might be a bad to reuse the battery. I think it is strong. Yeah, that was my only question. I'll check it out, John. I guess my main thing was that, when it comes to phones, a lot of times we do actually take the batteries out and then want to be able to put them back in. So, but for those iPads, man, those are a monster. It took me, just using the alcohol and that iFlex, it took me quite a while, or iPlastic, sorry. And I've dented one before. The first battery I removed from an iPad, I'm not ashamed to say, I think it was like an iPad 2. I dented the back of the housing because I pried a little too hard. So you only learn that lesson once, but yeah, it was not an easy one. Nate, I think you and Mike should go easy on the caffeine. Maybe so, maybe so, Harvey. You may have a good point there. But I think as long as I can keep up with it, I'm going to keep doing it. But one of these days, I'll probably be playing it at like 0.5 speed or 0.75 or something like that. Okay, speakers everywhere. Probably didn't need to tell anyone this. And there are all sorts of interesting topics that are related to this one. So I think I want to save that in itself for a separate live stream where we talk about nothing but voice assistants. However, it's very obvious. We've been going this direction for a long time, and that is people putting not only one voice assistant, but multiple voice assistants in their houses, in their cars, in their lives, one in each room. For all of you who have been on here for any amount of time, you know how I feel about that. I don't have a Google Assistant. I don't have Alexa. I don't feel the need for it. And you can call me paranoid if you like, but I don't want something besides my phone, I guess, and my smart TV, just listening all the time. It's creepy. In fact, I was listening to another podcast today where a guy was talking about having an Alexa sitting right on his nightstand, and in the middle of the night, the thing would respond to him and say something like, "I didn't understand what you were saying." And it's like it wakes you up out of your sleep, and you're like, "I didn't even say anything," So obviously, I've heard arguments, I've heard explanations from one side where developers say, it's only designed to be triggered by certain words, and it's only going to turn on when you say certain things. And I've heard other people say that they were able to extract information for, investigations or stuff like that. And I'm not worried about investigations, okay? I am concerned about corporations that collect information for marketing and other purposes. Let me make that clear, okay? This is my concern, is walking around in a world where every move you make, everything you buy, everything you read, everything you're interested in is being bought and sold by companies that then design products to market towards you. To me, that's a little creepy. So I can live with that. And I can also see the benefit of being able to say, Alexa, turn on my stage lights, or Alexa, make sure my hot air station is shut off. That I understand. That's really helpful. But obviously that comes with a little trade-off, and maybe I'm just not ready for that yet. But no matter how I feel about it, the fact of the matter is these things are appearing all over the place. How often have you gone to someone's house and you say something and suddenly one of these voices responds, and I didn't even know there was a little box in the room that was recording everything that's being said the whole time. It's kind of weird. It's pretty Orwellian, if you ask me. So probably the next thing will be cameras, but at least for now, I think we have a certain amount of privacy as long as we're in an area with an expectation of privacy. Anyways, let me not get too far off track. This is the big focus. Everyone's coming out with these voice assistants. They're going to be everywhere. And CES will definitely be showing off, what they can do, how much more sophisticated they've become, and why you need one more than likely. Harvey says, I hate voice assistant devices. When I'm speaking to my family members in another language, I constantly prompt Alexa to activate. That's a good point too. I always wondered about that. How would they respond to foreign languages, especially when you come across a lot of words that are going to be similar to words that are English, or whatever you set up. I imagine they have different options in the setup on those things for languages, so that could certainly lead to some confusions. But yeah, not a fan, personally. I mean, they're entertaining, and I do see the usefulness, but I'm not ready to have like a robot assistant just yet. I don't know. Maybe I'll change my mind, but right now I'm not sold on it. I don't think I need it. Smart homes, obviously, this is going to be a big one, and this is, kind of along the same lines. You see a pattern developing here, right? We are going to have devices in our homes, washing machines, refrigerators, stoves, microwaves, televisions, all sorts of things that are constantly connected, that we can monitor remotely. We can turn them on and off, disarm them. We can make sure that doors are locked or unlocked, talk to people that are out on the porch. I mean, I don't know what's next. But whatever that next level is beyond what we already know exists, I would expect to see a preview of that at CES next week. So that's going to be really interesting. Have people left a bad review on live? Okay, I'm going to come right back to that. So yeah, this is weird. Do any of you guys watch that show Black Mirror? It's on Netflix, and God, they have some really interesting takes on technology. So it's kind of designed to be almost an Outer Limits type of show, but based on modern technology. So they kind of take machines and devices and information and kind of show us what would be the dark side if there was one. What could go wrong with all of this evolution of technology that's happening. And it's kind of weird as we see a lot of these ideas that they're working with, are kind of like right around the corner. So when your house starts keeping track of things, and again, there's a benefit for this, right? I mean, if you could be at the grocery store and ask your refrigerator what you're out of, and it could tell you, useful, obviously, right? And at the same time, we have to assume that there is some marketing entity out there that is contacting Frigidaire or Whirlpool or whoever made your refrigerator, whoever sells it, or LG or probably Samsung at this point, and asking them, what does this household buy in any given month? What kind of products are they consuming? And how do we categorize that family based on their consumption, based on the things that they buy, based on, how often they wash their clothes, according to the way that they lock and unlock their door through this smart home device. We know exactly when you're home, when you leave, where you go. I mean, it's kind of weird if you think about it, but obviously this is going to be a big part of CES. I would expect to see a lot of smart home devices showcased. And again, I'm talking about things that we already know exist. So next week, we're going to hopefully, I would imagine, see what the next level of that is. And I kind of expect that the public in general will embrace most of this, probably even more so the younger generation, because if you grew up on it, it's not going to be a big stretch to kind of make that next step. Whereas, if you talk to someone's grandparents and you say, hey, we need to get you a voice assistant in your house, it's probably like, don't really need that just yet. So maybe I'm kind of showing at where I'm at, on that age scale. But man, you are going to be able to connect to everything. From starting your car remotely. God, we've been doing that for what, 20 years already? What's next? Have it pull up to the door, probably, I assume, once we get to self-driving cars. Wearables obviously will be a big thing. We've already got Fitbit and heart rate monitors built into our phones, but these are going to be going to the next level as well. So I expect, and there are lots of rumors about this going on, being able to use these wearable devices, to monitor much more detailed health statistics than we already can. So not just your heart rate and your blood pressure, but other things that are going on inside of your body. I mean, I would imagine they'll be able to take your temperature and have an idea as to whether you're developing a cold, or if it's a good time to go to a doctor, or if you have some health condition. You can probably do a lot of self-tests at home. A long time ago, they started talking about launching a thing for couples who were looking for, or were having fertility problems, so that they could better track and figure out when they could conceive, and if men were having problems with their sperm counts and all this stuff. So it's going to get really interesting. I am looking forward to the day when we can pick up a phone and say, hey, I just scanned myself, I have cancer, I need to go get this treated. That will be great. But the transition from here to there is going to be very interesting as far as these things go. And beyond that, they are talking about building a lot of technology into our clothing. So this is one of the things that I kind of always felt had to be coming very soon. You know, we're walking around holding these phones in our hands, right? And tilting our head down and looking at them, and now people have to hold it up in front of their face to unlock the screen. I can't see that being the long term. And when I say long term, I'm talking about the next 10 to 15 years. Things have got to change so dramatically that we're able to free up our hands in some way. You know, it's kind of crazy that we're still walking around holding these little notebook looking things and having to stare at them. You know, if we can't see it displayed in front of us, there's going to have to come a time where your display is built into the sleeve of your jacket, or, you know, maybe it's on a wrist, you know, a wrist cuff, like the cuff of your shirt or something like that. Or going back to the Black Mirror thing, you know, you might walk around and see people and they have a like rating built into their shirt, like how many likes they got that day, which is kind of weird. But if you haven't seen the episode, you should absolutely check it out. It's really interesting. So wearables, is that it? Yes, that is about it. So those are the major things that they're talking about. There's another thing that Samsung has applied for, apparently, as far as a patent. And what they're talking about doing is creating, finally, if you remember, Samsung's been talking about doing a foldable phone for a long time. Now they're talking about having a scrolling display. So in other words, what you would do is you would have something like this, and then your screen would just pull out this way. So you could pull out the display, and when you get done, you just roll it back up, and it goes back to being this size, and then you put this in your pocket. Now, what they've done is to secure a patent that allows them to, I guess, own the right to manufacture this for some period of time, a fingerprint-enabled scrolling display. So what you're going to do is have a device, something like this, where you put your fingerprint here on the top, and that's how you unlock it, and then you can then roll out your display. I don't know if they'll be showing it at CES. It seems more likely that they may be showing some sort of render, you know, a video or something that's designed to kind of show what that is. I'm sure it's not ready to go to market or anywhere close right now, but that seems to be the next big thing for Samsung. So that will be interesting, especially to see how that goes over. How would that affect us? You know, those of us that do repairs for a living, that's going to be an interesting one, because I assume that we'll be looking for, you know, we'll go to our distributors and be buying these pull-out AMOLED displays or AMOLEDs at some point in time in the future. Okay, let's go back here. John said, have people ever left a bad review online for you not fixing their phone when they said it cracked on their own? When they said it cracked on their own. Mm-hmm. Yes, we had a customer leave a negative review for his tablet that broke all by itself. So we replaced the digitizer on his tablet, and he came back a few days later and said that, you know, he just picked it up one day and it was cracked, and, you know, it must have been a defective piece of glass, right? Because glass just, you know, if it's cheap glass, it just breaks on its own. Well, the nightstand damage story. So, you know, we talked to him and kind of tried to explain to him why that wouldn't make sense. And he had brought the tablet back and left it and said, hey, I want to have this fixed, you know, get it fixed by the time I get back. And the person in the store at the time said, you know, I really don't think that's possible. You know, we're going to have to charge you. And he's like, I'm not going to pay for it or anything like that. So he came back and, you know, kind of, we had a brief discussion about it and offered him a discount, you know, tried to work with him, and he just got upset and took off. And he ended up leaving a bad review, and I don't know if it stayed or not. You know, this is the thing about these, any of these reviews in general, is that in order for them to stay on your page for any length of time, usually Yelp has to not like you in the first place. I suspect. Let me say allegedly, or I suspect, or it's my opinion, okay? Let me preface this entire answer with that. I get the feeling that if you're not spending any advertising dollars with Yelp, or in particular with Yelp, that any of those negative reviews may last longer than normal, because a lot of times we will have people who obviously, you know, create an account and write a review just for us, whether it's positive or negative, you know, based on the fact that they're upset that their phone got broken, or they said, hey, you guys are great, I'm going to leave a review, and then they felt obligated to keep their word, and then they went and made one review, and then, you know, of course, in a week or 3 days, I think it's like 3 to 7 days, it's usually gone. So yeah, he left a negative review. I honestly don't even know if it's there anymore, and I don't pay a lot of attention to Yelp, you know, unless there's something, at this point in time, if there's something like that that's not legitimate, I will write Yelp you know, I'll send a message to Yelp. First, I will try to respond to the customer privately. So If you guys haven't already done this, I've got an entire video that I put together all about Yelp. And if you're curious about how Yelp works and how you can kind of deal with them in difficult situations, I feel like I've learned a lot about Yelp. And I actually had a student come through my training who was a former employee of Yelp. So he kind of gave me a lot of inside information, some of which I expected to hear, to be confirmed, and some that I was really amazed that it's as bad as he told me it was. So there's all kinds of interesting things about Yelp. All of the statements that I made, I believe to be 100% accurate, and I think you might find something helpful there. One of them is that if someone does create a negative review based on something silly like, they broke it and they didn't want to pay for it again, and they don't really have an established history with Yelp, and they have a whole bunch, or if all their reviews are negative and it's pretty obvious they're looking for things that aren't legitimate, and even if it looks like a good Yelp reviewer, a legitimate Yelp reviewer left you a negative review, if you message the customer and attempt to correct the problem, and I don't post anything publicly like, hey, well, here's what really happened, because it's easy to have a knee-jerk reaction, obviously, in that situation. And now that you got me going on Yelp, just tell me to stop because I'll keep going all night. But I do want to get this part out. It's easy to react emotionally when you see a negative review. So my first step is to wait at least a couple of days and really think through what my response is going to be when I see a negative review. From that point, I do not respond publicly because that usually doesn't go anywhere, and I don't feel like it's really the correct way to approach that situation. I will message the customer privately. Yelp has access to all the communications that you have with that customer. So I will contact the customer privately and say, look, we really want to protect our reputation. We want to keep you as a customer. Here's what we're able to do under these circumstances. We want to be as fair as we possibly can, but we can't eat the entire cost of something that, as you can imagine, breaks when it's not in our possession. So let's see if we can work this out. And sometimes the customer will say, well, if you'll do this, I'll take my review down or whatever. And I'd say, look, I'll be happy if you take down your negative review, but I'm more interested in keeping you happy as a customer. That's what we're really after. And people who are willing to be fair about the situation will always react positively with that. Maybe an employee said something that came out wrong and they misunderstood it, and many times there is a miscommunication there. But when you get the person you're talking about who really just wants a free repair, they're usually going to say something like, no, give it to me for free, or that's it. I don't want your help. I want you guys to suffer, and I'm going to tell all my friends and all that kind of stuff. And when I get those, I will, after attempting to fix a situation with the customer, I'll contact Yelp and say, look, we're trying to smooth things over with this customer and they don't seem willing to cooperate. You tell us, what do you think we should do? How do we fix this? We don't want this negative review. We value our profile and the feedback that we get from Yelp reviewers. What do you recommend? And many times Yelp will filter that message manually. They'll go back and read it and see the conversation going on and kind of get the vibe from that customer that they're not really cooperating. And a lot of times you can get those things filtered. And by the way, if you wait, I want to say it's between 3 and 7 days. A lot of times those negative reviews will fall off on their own. So again, it doesn't really hurt, I don't think, to wait a few days and see what happens. But by all means, approach the customer, and if they don't cooperate, Yelp will oftentimes take those bad reviews down when they're not justified. Hope that was a good answer for that one. But yes, we've absolutely had that. There's one that I can think of. I know there's another one. Oh, actually, I got a few when I was working for another company. Beha probably knows about. They got a whole bunch of negative reviews, and the same rules applied. When we were in the wrong, if we tried to do the right thing, usually the customer would fix the negative review, and if not, if they didn't cooperate, we would talk to Yelp, and they'd usually get it straightened out for us too. And if you have time, check out Anthony Bourdain's summary or his explanation of what Yelp is, and then do yourself a favor and look up Bill Burr's rant on Yelp. Listen to what those two guys have to say and tell me if it doesn't make perfect sense when it comes to Yelp and Yelp reviewers in general. Do you feel smartphone repair will be a long-term industry given companies like Apple trying to shut down the right to repair? Hey, Hayes Steiner, how are you doing? I think I'm going to make a video response just for that because I get that question so often. And the short answer is this. What I recommend most people do at this point is to consider what we do as electronics repair and solutions. So to answer your question, anything can happen. However, people that get involved in this type of work are versatile. They are able to kind of change with the times. We're very flexible. You know, I always think of Bruce Lee, be like water. Let the water flow wherever it wants to go. When you learn these skills and you become proficient with repairing phones and tablets, and you are capable of dealing with people face to face, there are many other things that you can do besides fix phones. And I'm not trying to discourage you from repairing phones, but I do encourage people to diversify their business as much as possible, which is going to be a good segue into a conversation that I had today with the Motorola Rep. But I'm going to come back to that in just a second and get caught up here on the chat. But my answer is, I believe that anyone who's in the phone repair business and is dedicated to what they're doing right now will have a career for a long time. Now, it might not always be fixing iPhones. You know, it is entirely possible that a company like Apple could change the game so dramatically at some point, you know, in the next couple of years or maybe 5 or 10 years down the line where we can't fix our phones. That is entirely possible. So I encourage you to compare that to any other options that you have. You know, what else are you interested in doing, and what is the job security that you have in any given industry? Because if that's your concern, you know, if you're at a point in your life where you're thinking, I want to get into I want to invest my time into something that I can do for the next 20 years. I always tell people, one, make sure whatever that is, that it's something you love doing. Because if you get burned out on this in a year or two and you have to move on to the next thing, you're not going to be out of pocket a lot of money for the investment. But it's kind of silly to start investing your time, you know, especially when you want a career, when you get into something that you're not really truly interested in. That's going to be number one. And number two, if someone offered me a position and said that, hey, you can retire in 20 years, there's no way that this job will ever go, you know, is going to go anywhere. You'll always have it. You're going to be set for life by the time you get done working here. If I was remotely interested in that, I would probably do that, because this, just like many other occupations these days, really have no guarantee long term. You know, 10 years from now, we may not be able to fix anything. I don't think that'll be the case, but anything's possible. And this is the thing I keep coming back to, is if we take a look at automation, you know, robotics, artificial intelligence, just the technology that's being developed, we can already see how many people are going to be losing their jobs. If you're in transportation, if you are in, oh gosh, you know, they're saying now, if you're in medicine, if you're in the legal industry in any capacity, a lot of the things that people in those jobs do will become automated or will be able to be performed by machines. So what are they thinking long term? You know, for us, I think we're okay for quite a while, but I would always have something else to fall back on. You know, if I couldn't fix phones tomorrow, I know that I could still fix tablets. I could fix game consoles. If I invested the time to learn, I'm sure that I could fix drones. I could fix key fobs for BMWs and Mercedes that are very expensive to replace. So there are a lot of other things that you can fix once you acquire the skills that you'll need for repairing phones. I certainly can't offer you any guarantees, but I don't think that's too different from many other occupations. But there are so many other branches to this business that you can get into that I feel comfortable going forward and not, you know, get used to this. The sky is always falling. You will always hear people saying, oh, in a couple years, you won't be able to fix phones anymore. I don't think that's realistic. That's just my opinion. But there's no reason not to prepare yourself for a future where you can't work on iPhones or you can't work on Galaxy series phones anymore. You know, that's entirely possible. Let's see. Do you offer discounts on Yelp? Harvey, simple question. Simple answer to that one, no, I don't. Let me give you a bit more of an explanation and just kind of my personal opinion on Yelp and Craigslist. Both of those mediums for advertising and for buying and selling and anything else you want to think of, I think were good in the beginning. However, like many other things on the internet, I want to think of a nice way to say this, but I feel like they've been overtaken by people that are ruining a good thing for others. That's probably the nicest way I can put it. Okay, a long time ago I would have said, you know, the great thing about Craigslist is that it's free and anyone can use it. And now I will say that the worst thing about Craigslist is that it's free and that anyone can use it. Okay, so I don't buy and sell there anymore. And I don't encourage people who go to Yelp, and I know there are plenty of legitimate uses and plenty of great customers that I love to do business with on Yelp, but I don't want to start with my discount up front on a platform that encourages people to complain in order to get free stuff. That's kind of the medium length answer. And I'd love to give you a much longer one. I'll probably redo my Yelp video at some point because I feel very passionate about or towards that company because of their business practices. And I'll be happy to explain that to you on another occasion. But we don't. I don't offer any incentive for people to come on Yelp. I do maintain a Yelp profile. We try to keep all our reviews positive. We try to address any complaints that we get on there. But we have... we do not invest money with Yelp, and at this point, I don't recommend that anyone in this industry does. I don't think it pays for itself, with rare exception. You know, if you were in a market with very little competition, you might stand to gain from advertising on Yelp, but with their per click cost in the long term, you end up spending a lot of money for customer acquisition. So I don't think it's a good method to advertise on Yelp or Groupon for that matter, unless you're trying to sell accessories, I imagine. Vernil, how's it going? Adding on to Harvey, do you get a steep increase in customers when you do a discount promotion? You know, we don't do a whole lot of discount promotions, so I don't have a good example really to go on for that, John. We don't really offer promotions, so to speak. You know, we might do something like an accessory, like you buy, you know, come in with your repair, you get tempered glass half off or free or a discount on a case or something like that if you're talking about promotions. But we don't really advertise those types of promotions outside the store. So I don't really have a good answer for you for that. And we really want to keep in mind that for what we do, as far as the repair part of this business, it's not like there are tons of people just sitting around waiting for a sale on phone repairs. You know, you usually have customers who have phones in working condition or phones in condition that they are comfortable with using. And then you have people saying, I need to get this thing fixed. And when they do, they want to have it fixed yesterday. So I think it's a little different than traditional marketing in that respect. You know, you might have in the back of your mind that you want to get a new lawnmower someday, but yours is working okay, and then you go to Home Depot and you see a sale and you go, wow, I've been waiting for an excuse to buy this. But I don't think you see that as much when it comes to repairs. And if you look at any repair industry, outside of regular maintenance, let's say, you might get a discount card that comes in the mail for an oil change or a tire rotation or something like that. But I think it's rare to see anything that's not really just a camouflaged regular price promotion going on. If you go to any type of service industry, you know, you might go and say, oh, if you buy 3 tires, you get the 4th one free. Well, what you're really doing is paying full price for 4 tires, and then they're kind of making that look like it's a discount when it really isn't. So I don't have a really good answer for that. I'm aware of people who have run price-based promotions before, but it wasn't really, in my observation, it wasn't a huge influx of customers as much as it was an ability to close a sale easier that way. So if you came to my store and said, I need my phone screen repaired, and how much is it? And I happen to be offering a $20 discount, and I say, oh, you know, you're in luck. It's normally $79. Today we're doing it for $59. I've seen those convert easier. And at the same time, I've seen crazy stuff. I have seen people offer a repair virtually at cost, you know, at the cost of the part, and customers still walk away and say they were going to go shop around and see what else is available. So a lot of times what we find is that if we start off at the lowest possible price, the next question is how much lower can you go? So I just recommend that you keep track of your statistics on that and see if it's effective for you. But I discourage people from starting out by saying, we're going to lower our price to get customers, because to me, that kind of communicates that we're really desperate to get customers. We really want to get you in here. We're willing to work cheap. And every single time the customer goes back to that store, they want that same deal. And anyone they talk to wants that same deal. So it's going to be, maybe you can get a few more customers, but you're definitely going to lower your profit margin. I suppose if you're in a position to deal with a huge quantity, you know, if you have massive traffic coming through and you're trying to compete with some down the street, you might be able to get those customers to come to you. But obviously, your operating cost is going to be constant. So hopefully the numbers will justify offering those discounts. Okay, Vernil, seriously, when are you coming to trade? I don't know. I wish I could tell you. There are lots of places I would like to go. I've added that to my list, so I don't know. When somebody sends me a ticket, maybe one of these days. I hope so. All right. So, oh yeah, that's right. You were saying there's huge opportunity for phone repairs there. Wasn't that the deal? Isn't that what you were telling me, Vernil? Let's see what Vernil. I'm gonna go to Vernil's channel and see. Do you have some photos or anything going on there? What do we have? Nope. Okay. All right. One of these days. I don't have an answer. I like to travel on occasion. Okay. So beyond CES, or maybe kind of along the same lines, we have LG, who we haven't heard much about, right, for a very long time. We know that they do well with manufacturing televisions. When it comes to their phones, they've been having some difficulties lately. Probably before I jump into that, I should have went back to where I was at. I do this quite a bit. So one of the questions that prompted me earlier about companies, no, was it that one? There's a comment up here that kind of reminded me of something that I wanted to discuss today, and I can't remember who it was. I think it was Hayes. Do I feel a smartphone will be a long-term industry? I'm not sure if it was Hayes or not, but this was a good segue anyway. So today, a Motorola representative contacted me. He had sent me an email about a week and a half ago, and all of you guys who have phone repair shops, this I think you'll find very interesting. So Motorola wants to know what we think about them developing an app that will assist in allowing or enabling technicians to repair their phones if you are kind of, I want to say, an authorized repair center. So there are a few things that they didn't really want me to discuss publicly yet because it isn't really all solidified, so I don't want to go into great detail, but I was really excited to talk to a rep from a manufacturer who wanted to know, he came across my YouTube channel and said, hey, we're looking at different options at this point. And as you know, I've always been very excited about any sort of competition within the marketplace. iPhones are great and Galaxies are great, but I remember when there were 10 different brands to choose from and they were all pretty decent. Well, I shouldn't say 10. There's probably about 6 really good phone manufacturers out there, and these big two kind of overtook everything. And so at this point, it's like all we have is choice A and choice B, which is okay, but it doesn't really encourage competition very much. So this gentleman wanted to know all sorts of things about how we look at manufacturers, how we can help customers, what would encourage us to join a program should they roll something out where you could become an authorized Motorola repair center, and what the benefits of that would be exactly. And I'm going to try to get a hold of someone else, either him or someone else from the company, to come on here and do either a video or a phone call interview so that you can all kind of give them questions too. So just kind of keep this in the back of your mind. If there's anything that you ever wanted to ask Motorola or ask a manufacturer in relation to phone repairs, have those questions ready to go. I'm hoping I can get them on here in a week or two. I don't know how soon that's going to turn out, but I thought it was very interesting that they are looking at companies like Apple and Samsung, and they are addressing the frustrations that we have in the repair shops where we can't, it's difficult for us to get the parts. The parts are very expensive. We don't have access to schematics. Customers are buying insurance from their carriers and protection plans and stuff like that, and going to Apple stores to get their phones changed out or repaired. And we had a very long discussion. It was probably like a good hour. And I'm really excited about this, and I hope that other companies kind of take this position and realize that we are not going away. This is the interesting thing, and he's obviously not involved in repairs, but he really just wanted to get as much information as he could about what we do. And I explained to him, he said, is it really frustrating for you guys? I've been told it's hard to do this. You don't have access. And I kind of just told him, look, here's the thing. We will continue to have access to the parts that we need in order to repair phones one way or another. That's going to happen. And in fact, we are usually going to be able to get a hold of the plans for these phones. We can get the schematics online. We have software now that's developed to show us where the circuitry is built into the phones. So that is always going to be available to us, but by cooperating with manufacturers or having manufacturers cooperate with us, what do we stand to gain? How would that be good for them? And is this something that customers will respond to? And I wholeheartedly believe that if your shop, at this point in time, if there's no other alternative, the customer is going to go to the carrier. If they can't go to the manufacturer, let's say they have a water damaged phone, then their only option is to come for us. So that's not going to change. But what if someone went onto the manufacturer's website and there was a store locator that said, oh, you live in this city, you can take your phone here. And I've always believed that this is the way that it should be. You can't build out enough stores to service a nation with 300 million people, not to mention the rest of the world. And in fact, this is what I thought was interesting. At this point in time, they have a program in India where Motorola actually has authorized third-party repair centers. So they do, in fact, send their customers to privately owned businesses where they can get their phone service. I said, well, why aren't we doing this here? So that would be the obvious, potentially the next step, which would be really cool. And of course, I expressed to him that the thing for us is that as small business owners, we can't spend ridiculous amounts of money. So if there was some huge upfront fee to do this, that would kind of make the process difficult. And if there was any sort of training that they want to offer, that's great. They had this video of this 3D app where they kind of walk you through the phone, show you from every different angle what's inside, what parts can be reused. And this would obviously give you a direct line to them in order to buy them. And of course, I kind of tried to communicate to them as much of my concerns about a program like this as I could. Like for example, if you deal with Samsung, last time I heard, you can buy wholesale parts from Samsung directly, but there's a minimum dollar amount for that, and it was pretty ridiculous at the time. If I remember correctly, it was like $50,000 a month worth of parts that you need to buy from Samsung in order to buy them wholesale. So for a lot of us, that's not realistic. And I kind of did everything I could to get him to really look on a small scale how this could work if we had a large amount of participation from a large number of shops, and how it would make sense, and how maybe we would be more likely to encourage customers to go towards a brand that supports independent repair, or supports the right to repair. And instead of hiding all of their information and trying to keep their parts away from us and keeping their, telling the customers the phone, their warranty is voided because they went to a third party, instead to encourage them to come to someone like us who can fix their phones and get us factory parts that have factory warranties on them. So I will try to break that down in greater detail later on, but I was really excited about that phone call, and I think that it looks like Motorola may be going that direction. And if we can get a lot of other brands to do the same thing, then at a certain point, maybe the big two will have to give us more options as far as repairs go. Okay, I got kind of carried away with that, but I was just really stoked today to hear from this guy. LG, again, lots of great displays, lots of problems with the phones lately. Well, here's the thing. One, South Korea apparently has decided that they are going to allow LG to take the technology behind manufacturing OLED screens to China. And in fact, the rumor is that Apple has already invested huge, like in the billions of dollars, to build these facilities out in China. So, and along those lines, the word is that LG will begin manufacturing displays for the iPhone X in the future. So what that should mean to us is that mass producing these things and bringing the price point down will be much more realistic. There will be, another manufacturer in the game of making OLEDs for other branded phones. So this could really be a big game changer for us if they can get that price down and we don't have to always depend on refurbished screens, taking the glass off and this crazy process that we have to go through to get them fixed. That will be good news. That's number one. Secondly, as I mentioned, LG may supply OLED. The first article said may supply OLED for the 6.5 inch, which is supposed to be the next generation iPhone 10, the 10 Plus coming out next year. So if you can imagine a 6.5 inch screen with no bezel, this thing is going to be a monster if this is true. This says LG may supply those OLEDs. This one says that LG is said to supply OLED displays for this year's iPhone 10 Plus. And then, of course, it progressively just goes from one article to the next. Now it says LG will supply OLED panels for the iPhone 10 Plus. So it looks like, you know, people are talking about it. Maybe something leaked. Maybe this is all just a big rumor. But from every source that I could find, it looks like LG is going to start supplying these displays, which could be great. There is almost definitely going to be a 6.5 inch iPhone 10 Plus coming out next year. That doesn't particularly excite me because I'm not a fan of big phones, but I'm sure a lot of people will be happy to hear that. And it's good news that we see LG getting into the game and encouraging that they, and you know, apparently in South Korea, they have very strict regulations about keeping their technology inside of the country, and they don't like to share it, and they don't like to move any of the facilities or have them anywhere else. But according to many of these articles that are out there right now, it looks like LG may be building out something in China or selling this deal or somehow setting up shop in China. So we should have OLEDs coming out of there sometime in the future. And I think that was most of the stuff that I had on the list tonight. So cool. All right. Any questions, comments? Anyone in the chat? I want to make sure. Let's see. No, did I lose y'all on that one? All right, so that was pretty much it for this evening, I think. Let me see if I had anything else on the list. Actually, there was. There was a bit more about CES, I think. Let's see. Google's Daydream. Oh, you know what? Here's the other thing about LG. They are actually dropping the G. So the next, what was rumored to be the G7, in fact, will not have the G in the name, supposedly. They want to get rid of that from their premium line, so their flagship phones won't be carrying the G anymore. And I think that's kind of good news, because I've always felt like LG had a lot of potential, but they've had many problems with the last couple of generations, you know, where phones just start boot looping, or they won't start up, or they get stuck on the logo. So hopefully they will fix that problem, and maybe rebranding the premium line will kind of breathe more life into them. And that will be good news. Their stocks have gone up since they made this announcement that they were moving the OLED technology to China, so I would keep an eye on that one. I'm definitely not an expert, but if I were investing, I think I would take a close look at LG. Thank you, Harvey. I really appreciate everyone who came on. As usual, this evening, I will be back again Monday at 2 p.m. and then Thursday, of course, at 6, right? 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Thank you so much for coming on and watching, and have a good rest of your week.